Let's talk to James Price. James, very good morning to you.
Hello, my friend. How are you?
Very well indeed. It does look now, doesn't it, as though Keir Starmer is completely out of the loop when it comes to international affairs, when it comes to knowing anything about what's going on with Iran, with the Israelis refusing to give us their intelligence, the Americans seemingly not sharing much with us either. He's between a rock and a hard place. And now Lord Hermer, his mate from the Human Rights Brigade, is telling him, well, maybe we shouldn't get involved.
I mean, where to even begin with this sort of stuff? I'll start to get him out of the way because he's the most despicable little toad I think imaginable in as you say, Lord Hermer, this bloke who has chosen time and time and time again, not the cab rank rule, but is perfectly respectable and barristers take the clients that they're given, but he's gone out of his way to choose all of the worst people in the world. He's chosen separatists and terrorists in Ireland. He's chosen members of Al-Qaeda. He's chosen all the worst enemies of Britain and of the West. And so I'm not surprised at all that he's trying to use his powers in this oily, disgusting way to prevent Britain from being on the right side of history, in this case with Iran. I mean, it's absolutely disgraceful. And I think that when this disgusting party is kicked out of power in a few years, whoever replaces it, whether it's the Tories or Reform or whether it's a coalition or whatever it is, should investigate this man's conflict of interests, because I really do think that the word traitor is no longer too strong a word for somebody like him. I know that's punchy for this time of the morning.
No, I mean, there's a line in the Daily Telegraph story this morning, which is a great story, which says, you know, the Attorney General is reluctant to sign off on any plans that the Labour government might have for helping the United States against Iran. You know, I'm sorry, when was it necessary for the Attorney General to sign off on any plans, militarily speaking, that this country gets involved in?
Yeah, absolutely right. Look, I think that it's very important that the Prime Minister of this country, even if it's someone like Starmer, with whom I obviously vehemently disagree on almost everything, should have the power to be able to move on these things. He is the only person who's given all the requisite important intelligence briefings and military briefings and has, however tenuous they may be, personal connections with people like President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu and all the rest of it. And the fact that this clearly compromised individual is trying to stick his beak in where it doesn't belong is deeply, deeply suspect to me. Let's just remember, by the way, that this regime in Iran, the kind of regime, by the way, that Jeremy Corbyn used to get paid to shill for on their propaganda television network, was paid tens of thousands of pounds to shill for these people. Okay, they might go around calling America the Great Satan, but Britain is right up there as the other little Satan alongside Israel. We'd be doing the world a great service to knock the military capabilities of this country, certainly their nuclear program, and I won't shed any tears if there's a regime change in Iran either. No,
exactly right. And many people have said that as well, that the people of Iran are actually really rather looking forward to that. But some of the people on the left in this country, and I include Starmer in this, are so desperate not to offend their mates that they don't want to be seen to be backing Israel in any way, shape or form. And I think it's quite shameful, really.
It's more than quite shameful. It's absolutely disgraceful. It is this such a weird thing that the rest of us, people like you and me, all the good folks who are listening to this as they probably get up and go to work or whatever they're doing, unlike all the lefties who won't wake up for another few hours yet, are constantly, what are we called? We're called racists and we're called all these horrible things. And yet when you get a very clear example of racism, aka the Iranian regime going around saying, oh, we must go and kill all of the Jews, funnily enough, the anti-racist brigade are nowhere to be seen. And they're running out, I think, at this point, if the Ayatollah does go, of evil, dictatorial, Islamist regimes to cozy up to. I think it would be a very great day to see the world's only, or the Middle East's only democracy finally rid itself of having to live under the shadow of a bunch of Islamo-fascist theocrat nutjobs in Iran. It'd be a great day when everybody around the world could sleep more soundly in their beds at night.
I mean, imagine defending a regime that wants to put you in prison for allowing yourself to show your hair to someone. I mean, that's where we're talking about here. But let's have a look at the extremely perceptive political judgments and predictions of Keir Starmer. This is when he was with Beth Rigby over in Canada, and he was asked about Donald Trump and whether there was an imminent attack.
It sounds like an American attack could be imminent. Do you know what's going on?
Well, I don't think you should read into that an American attack is imminent.
He's calling the Security Council together.
We had a 2-hour discussion with the President last night on the Middle East, on this very issue, and As a result of that, the G7 statement came out very clear about the risk of the nuclear programme in Iran,
he seems
Israel's
to be
right to
talking the opposite.
self-defence, and the need to de-escalate across the region, including in Gaza.
So you don't think an attack is in his mind, or US joining Israel? You don't think
well,
that's in
the
his
wording
mind?
of the G7 statement, I think, speaks for itself. And I sat next to the President for that 2-hour discussion as
Okay.
we were working through not just the issues, but the statement itself.
So you're not worried about
so
escalation?
I'm clear that we need to de-escalate.
But are you worried about escalation?
Of course I'm worried about escalation, which is why my focus is on de-escalation. I'm worried about escalation in the region.
His quote was, "There's nothing the president said that suggests he's about to get involved in this conflict." Breaking news, Trump has approved Iran attack plans. Well done, Sir Keir Starmer.
Goodness me, I'd love to play a game of poker against Starmer, wouldn't you? Goodness me. And also...
Well, no, because he'd only be playing with public money. You'd only, with your own money you were winning back off him.
And of course, if you win, at the end of it, all the winnings would have to be equally redistributed amongst all those who didn't bother taking part.
Yeah,
right?
of course. Absolutely right.
This is just extraordinary. I'll ignore the fact that Beth Rigby mispronounced imminent, because that would be a cheap shot.
That would be a cheap shot, yeah. I mean, I've tried really hard to avoid doing that, but thank you for pointing it out.
But this is serious stuff. If Donald Trump does get involved in this, in the moment the Israelis have done a really remarkable job with the tools that they've got. The problem is that the Iranian regime, for decades now, instead of spending all the money that they've got on helping out their country, they haven't invested, for example, in any of their water networks. We think it's bad here that the Lib Dems blocked Britain from being able to build any more reservoirs for decades. No water infrastructure at all, and sewage plants and pipes and all the rest of it have been built in Iran since the revolution, and the population has trebled or so in size.
Yeah.
Instead, they've spent all that money on building nuclear reactors deep underground to try and build nuclear weapons, despite the fact that there are plentiful supplies of fossil fuels that could keep them going perfectly merrily. And as a result of that, you're going to need these enormous B-52 US bombers that can drop a 30,000-pound bomb down on these things, whereas the Israelis' heaviest ordnance at the moment is in the order of about 6,000 to 7,000 pounds. That's the scale we're talking about. And I don't think he's asking too much of Trump to lend the Israelis one of these for a few hours. I'm sure they will bring it back without any scratches in order to rid the world of this horrible terror.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll keep our eyes on what happens over the next few hours, because it does certainly now look, despite what Keir Starmer says, an attack is very, very imminent indeed. Let's talk about the other great crisis that we're facing, the migrant crisis. We learned yesterday 40,276 Channel migrants have now arrived in the UK since Labour got in the 4th of July last year. Effectively, a small boat, I don't call them really small boats anymore, a large boat with quite a lot of people on, is arriving literally every 5 minutes.
Well, the numbers are extraordinary, aren't they? And try and get people to think about this. Before we even have these people crossing over, MI5 say that there are nearly 50,000 people on their watch list for active terrorists. The majority of those, the vast majority of those, are Islamist terrorists. If you close your eyes, that's about Anfield football stadium full of murderous jihadists who are living in Britain plotting terror attacks on us. And yet every day we allow hundreds and hundreds more people, the vast majority of whom are fighting age men from alien cultures who've got no love for this country at all. Some may be here as economic migrants, which you could understand, except for the fact, of course, that not only are they leaving France, where they could have gone and got work, but also the fact that every person who comes over here is a young woman or a child stuck in a godforsaken refugee camp that Britain can no longer come along and help. But plenty of them are already committing crimes. They're sniffing around primary schools. Speaking of Iran, we had to arrest a bunch of Iranian spies sent over here who came over themselves on small boats and were living it up at taxpayer expense in hotels whilst plotting active terror attacks against us, and we're not doing anything about it.
Incredible, absolutely incredible. I mean, yesterday as well, the Prime Minister actually admitted that small boat crisis is getting worse, and we don't really know what to do about it. So we've got to come a long way from smashing the gangs, haven't we? You know, basically yesterday in Parliament, Angela Rayner said that, oh, we've locked up one ringleader, which is one person, of course, that was arrested under the Tory regime that they finally put away. And apparently Starmer at the time, let's do it, we've got to play it, haven't we? Let's play Starmer back in November, talking about the arrest of this guy, the kingpin.
It is good news that today a man suspected of being a significant supplier of small boat equipment has been arrested. Criminal gangs have been getting away with this for far too long. I want to thank the UK National Crime Agency, along with their Dutch and Belgian counterparts, for all their hard work and their crucial role in this investigation. It's exactly what we want to see. And it shows that our approach of working with international partners to smash the people smuggling gangs is bearing fruit. In just over 4 months since the election, we've rapidly set up a new border security command, bringing together key agencies to disrupt people smuggling gangs.
Right. OK, then. So such a significant figure was this man who was arrested, who was, by the way, detained by the Tories in 2023, that the smuggling gangs have all stopped operating. Oh, no, they haven't. Actually, no, they've increased their number and they've managed to get even more people across the border and into the Channel and into Britain than ever before. We learned today in the Telegraph that there's actually a summer sale going on, you know. Business is going so well that they've now slashed the prices of smuggling yourself across the Channel to 2,000 quid. The Albanian gangs have gone, you know, everything must go, you know, because, you know, it's a sellout sale, 2,000 quid, half price, 50% off, you know, roll up, roll up.
It's just, I mean, I'm laughing because the alternative is to put my head in my hands and cry at this. And just the lack of professionalism, the lack of foresight, the fact that in that fancy press room, Starmer can't even get himself a teleprompter, so he's got to keep looking down at his notes and then again mispronouncing words. Just, it's not exactly a terribly threatening figure at this point, is he? Smashing the gangs. Anything you're smashing is their record profit margins.
Yeah.
I'll take people back to, he's not everyone's cup of tea, but Dominic Cummings, who recently pointed out that he went through, and he was running basically the government for a while in Number 10, and he went through with the heads of the armed forces, with the Navy, with the intelligence guys, all the rest of it. So, right, so what's the root of the problem here? And they said, well, to be honest, it's triflingly easy to fix the small boat crossings. You've got some scary guys in the special boat service and the SAS and things like that. Could go around, kill a couple of these guys, you know, smash up some of the boats, all these sorts of things. Easy peasy, right? We've got a massive navy. We could still do that. It stopped the Armada. It stopped Napoleon. It stopped Hitler coming over. The problem is the lawyers, and we go back to people like Hermer, that disgraceful little man again. And Cummings points out that if the Prime Minister were actually to order the Navy to do the sorts of things that would very easily stop these fighting-age men from coming over illegally, then the Cabinet Secretary, the head of the Civil Service, could have the Prime Minister arrested for breaching the European Convention on Human Rights. I mean, this is completely doolally, and nobody who wants our civilization to survive could act in this way.
Exactly right. And let's go back to the big story of the week, which is, of course, the grooming gang scandal, the rape gang scandal, because, you know, once again, Starmer has really yet to speak about this. You know, he's been asked a couple of questions when he was away at the G7, you know, but he avoided Prime Minister's questions yesterday, and he hasn't actually made a specific statement on it since he said there was going to be a national inquiry. He hasn't said who's going to head it. He hasn't said who's going to be responsible for it. He hasn't said who it's answering to. He hasn't said what its reach will be, what its powers will be, and who it will be going after. And so I think there's a great big vacuum here that Keir Starmer just simply doesn't want to fill. But this morning we learned, and we kind of knew this anyway, that there's a Rochdale grooming gang who cannot be deported because they've all renounced their citizenship of Pakistan. They were dual nationals, Pakistan passport holders and British passport holders, but because of, once again, the ECHR, they can't be sent back.
It's enough to make your blood boil, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Morning or any time of the day. I don't care. Send them to Pakistan. If the Pakistanis won't take them, we will cancel all visas, all future visas. We'll deport everyone with a visa in the United Kingdom. We'll stop still the crazy amount of aid. I think we sent something like £130 million to Pakistan last year out of the pockets of everybody who's watching and listening to this today. And we'll start putting sanctions on if they won't take them. I'm not surprised they don't want to take these, you know, paedophile, rapist scumbags, but they've got to do it. They're not staying here. The alternative is that we build some super max prison like El Salvador and stick all these people in it to rot away forever. I don't think that the establishment realise quite how much loathing, rightly so, British people have for foreign paedophile rapists. It's not complicated.
Yeah, strangely enough, most people think it's pretty abhorrent. You know, there's only a few lefties left, and some of them, bizarrely, still have radio shows who think it's racist to call them out. Let's have a look at the exchange yesterday between Angela Rayner and Chris Philp.
It is vital that scandals like this are never again covered up because of the racial background of perpetrators. And Baroness Casey's report said people who downplay the ethnic dimension are letting victims down, to use her words. So I do have to raise the language the Prime Minister used in January when he, I'm afraid to say, smeared campaigners as jumping on, quotes, a far-right bandwagon, simply for calling for the very inquiry he has now been forced to set up. Standing up for rape victims is not far right. So will the Deputy Prime Minister apologise for what the Prime Minister said?
Well, I say, Mr Speaker, that the Prime Minister did not just raise issues but acted on them. He brought the first prosecutions against grooming gangs, called for action to address ethnicity issues in 2012. And the honourable member will know that the data that the previous government collected was inaccurate and not complete. And Casey recognised this, and it's one of the recommendations that we will be taking forward. The Prime Minister made those comments specifically about Tory ministers who sat for years in the government and did absolutely nothing about this scandal.
Oh dear. They don't look very happy on the front benches of Labour these days, do they? There's a lot of scowling going on, particularly from the women.
Do you know, I think they've realised that this is a one-term government, and they've realised that they came in without a plan.
They've blown it, haven't they?
They've blown it completely. They've got no clue. They're completely loathed already, and it's only been, not even a year in power yet. And therefore, what they're going to do, and this is really scary, I think, and if people take one thing away from this morning, it should be this, is that they're going to keep pushing through the most mad, radical, evil stuff they can possibly imagine, because they know they're never going to get a sniff of power ever again in their miserable lives. Look at the assisted dying bill that's killing off granny. Look at the vote that happened this week, where you're going to be allowed to kill an unborn child up to minutes before it would be born. This is a full baby, and this is murder. This is absolutely evil, and they're going to keep pushing through this stuff, giving away more and more British territory, allowing the Spanish to check your British passport as you enter Gibraltar. All of these things, they're never going to get back into power, and we must never, ever let them. And we should hold them into account until we can haul these miserable little people out of government.
Yes, I mean, it's a great piece in the Mail by Stephen Glover today, who says, why is the left so keen on killing people? And he mentions exactly those two pieces of legislation, the assisted dying bill and the abortion act that was put through today. It's just bizarre what their priorities are.
And by the way, killing everybody apart from people like Axel Rudakabana, that disgusting Islamist murderer of those little girls. It's such a topsy-turvy world, as you say, Mike. They're desperate to kill everybody they can, apart from the murderers and the foreign paedophile rapists.
And,
it's a very topsy-turvy world.
And bizarrely, from the countries from which the paedophile rapists come to this country, they all have a death penalty for paedophilia. So, you know, when people go, oh, it's a cultural thing, is it really? I don't think so. These are criminals who are evil and horrible individuals who have come to this country because they're probably better treated if they commit those kinds of crimes than if they did them in their own homes.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. What we're going to end up with by the end of the Labour term is a country that doesn't have a lot of granny left in it, because granny will be considered too much of a burden and will be bumped off. There'll be way fewer British children being born, especially perhaps as a result of this abortion legislation. We'll be a diminished country in terms of the land that we've actually got, giving away the Chagos Islands, probably trying to give away the Falklands next, this disgraceful deal with Gibraltar, all the rest of it. What there will be, though, will be literally tens of thousands more fighting age men from alien third world cultures and lots of foreign paedophiles staying here as well, right? You couldn't write a headline that was as disastrous as what we're going to end up with by the end of this term. People should never, ever forget this. And if you're still deciding that you might want to vote Labour, I think you should go and get your head checked out.
Yeah, absolutely right. James, great to see you as ever. Thank you very much indeed. James Price, former government advisor.